Good night, I'm Lisa Lord, and in our news, a new cadres poll reveals deep concern about childhood obesity in Barbados. New legislation aimed at suppressing criminal activity and enabling the seizure of ill-gotten gains. Social media reacts to problems with public transport on the island. Barbados is on an EU blacklist. And in sports, BSAC kicks off day one in the Frank Blackman zone.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC News Night, starting now.
And in our top story, Barbadians are deeply concerned about childhood obesity. A cadres poll commissioned by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados shows that Barbadians have a sense of urgency and a strong desire to take action against that disease. Our Shane Jones joins us live now with the details. And what do the results show, Shane?
Well, Lisa, this is a first of its kind poll in Barbados. And to answer your question, quite frankly, the results show that Barbadians are ready for some drastic changes, even if that means a complete departure from familiar eating habits and drinking habits as well. Now, the poll, which canvassed over 800 men and women from all 30 constituencies, also suggests that Barbadians are eager to learn more about healthy lifestyles and how to reduce obesity. So let's bring up those 6 main findings of the poll for you now. First up, it finds that 83% of Barbadians are very concerned about obesity, and it's even higher in the case of children, as 88% feel extremely concerned about childhood obesity. The second point was that 97% of Barbadians feel that it is important for children to have access to healthy food and drinks at school, and 62% feel that the current food environment in schools is unhealthy. Thirdly, Barbadians are showing strong support for policies that will create a healthier environment in schools. Now, 72% support restricting the sale of unhealthy foods and beverages and marketing and advertising of them within schools. Next up, a whopping 92% of Barbadians support having national policies and guidelines to ensure a healthy school environment. Number 5, 78% of the population feels that it is important that government take steps to reduce obesity and the related non-communicable diseases. And finally, there was strong support for the introduction of front-of-package warning labels on food and beverages. And you know, that is so people are absolutely clear about the contents of what they are consuming. Well, Lisa, these findings were revealed today at the Barbados Hilton, and Director of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados, Professor Anne St. John, says obesity is the most prevalent nutritional disorder in children and adults globally. She's saying their campaign in the fight against it has now reached its second phase, where they will be advocating for policy change. Now, phase 2 includes 4 main areas.
To coordinate stakeholder meetings and community-based activities. Secondly, to formalize an active childhood obesity prevention coalition in Barbados. Thirdly, to identify and develop 6 model schools. Last year, we were able to develop 3 model schools, the Foundation School, the Rennell Weeks Primary, and Queen's College. Fourthly, to increase public awareness about the dangers of childhood obesity and the prevention policies via a strong communications and mass media campaign.
So that's it, Lisa. And the big takeaway is that Barbadians are concerned. They seem ready for healthy change, and the Heart and Stroke Foundation has begun to take action to bring about that change. Back to you.
And thank you so much, Shane. Well, nearly a year after she led the Barbados Labour Party to a clean sweep of the 30 seats in Parliament, Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley will present her administration's first national budget next week, Wednesday. She made the announcement during the official opening of the St. Nicholas Abbey Railway last evening. The Prime Minister also revealed that for the very first time, the second reading of the annual appropriations bill will be done along with the budget.
And the reason for it is this, that numbers make no sense unless I can show the country and we can agree as a country where we are going with respect to taking the country both economically and socially as a society. And to that extent, therefore, I will have the opportunity to be able to speak at greater length next week, Wednesday, on the 20th, where we will map out not just what may be a revenue shortfall, but more importantly, where Barbados is and where we must take it.
Well, incorporating renewable energy into the sugar industry will be a major focus for government going forward. Prime Minister Motley says the move is key in making the industry sustainable and profitable. And as Barbados works towards being fossil fuel free by the year 2030, she says that any gains from going green should be primarily used to the benefit of the industry.
The first claim on the country's biomass cannot be foreign investors, of whom we know little, but has to be the sugar industry of Barbados, so that a sugar factory can be powered 12 months a year to become a viable financial proposition, being able to stabilize the sugar industry. And that is why I've taken the rein to make that point. Because more than anything else, Barbados has to stem the decline of the sugar industry by making sensible financial decisions.
And Prime Minister Motley says a number of sources will be tapped for renewable energy.
When it is not raining, it will come from the wind, which you have an abundance of, and which, as I passed Morgan Lewis on the way here, made me realize that we really have not even begun to tap the surface with respect to wind energy. And it will also come from the biomass that we generate.
Well, Barbados' efforts to suppress criminal activity and seize ill-gotten gains are being boosted through new legislation. As he led off debate on the second reading of the Proceeds and Instrumentalities of Crime Bill 2019, Attorney General Dale Marshall was critical of those who he says make a living off criminal activity, suggesting the evidence is seen from their property to their vehicles. Mr. Marshall told Parliament the sophisticated criminal tries all means to hide the proceeds, but stressed that this legislation assists in going after it.
Needs to be satisfied, not necessarily that the particular asset was the proceeds of that particular offense, but that it was the proceeds of something associated with it. The prosecutor will have to apply for a confiscation order. The prosecution must give the defense no less than 14 days notice of that application, and the defendant in clause 14 of the bill is entitled to appear and to adduce evidence at the hearing of the application, and the court would make the decision.
Well, Mr. Marshall says he met with an investigator and they are looking into payments made under the last administration as far back as 2009 and 2011. He says that the move is not a witch hunt and adds that the bill forms part of the government's obligations to satisfy international requirements.
Passage of this piece of legislation will therefore serve that added purpose of demonstrating to the international community our commitment to fighting money laundering. One of the ways to fight money laundering, Mr. Speaker, is to be able to go after the money and to be able to do it effectively and to be able to do it in circumstances where you may not have a conviction and to be able to do it in circumstances where it might not be an appendage to any kind of drug activity at all.
Opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley says there is a perception that only certain people in Barbados are prosecuted. He says it's a belief that government must push to remove, as corruption is something this island cannot afford.
It cannot be that if you are of a certain hue, you are investigated and prosecuted. It cannot be if you are of a different hue that you are allowed to escape the eye of investigation or the hand of prosecution. It cannot be, depending on who you know or where you went to school. It cannot be that the place of your birth matters. It cannot be that because you run a business and employ a certain number of Barbadians who are dependent on you, both they and their families dependent, it cannot be that you are allowed to escape the net while others are brought to face the law.
Meantime, Labour Minister Colin Jordan says that crime and violence are destroying homes across the island. He says it's also causing a serious migration from the village.
And so people who believe that they have achieved or arrived then decide that because of the environment in the village, because they do not want their children to be socialized in what they may consider to be a negative environment, they remove themselves from the village, from the community, to establish themselves somewhere else. All these, Mr. Deputy Speaker, have a serious negative impact on our communities.
Well, as more laws are brought to Parliament to deal with crime and violence, one minister says this should serve as a wake-up call for Barbados. Minister of the Creative Economy, Culture and Sports John King says such laws show a lack of ethics and that Barbados is losing its way.
There was a time in this country, as most of you would know, that even if you brought home something from school that was not yours, your family would first want to know how you bring this thing in my house, where it come from, who give it to you, all of these type of things. Those were the things, apart from our national anthem and the motto and the pledge, those were the things that made Barbados stand out, not only in the Caribbean but in the rest of the world.
What's Trending is brought to you by Trident Insurance. We treat you like family.
And we say hello now to Lisa Broom in our social media corner to tell us what is trending. Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening, Lisa, and welcome to Watch Trending. We start here at home, where Transport Minister Dr. William Duguid just released some new figures on our transport sector. Now, he told a national consultation that there are over 120,000 registered vehicles in Barbados, and they're understandably contributing to the gridlock and congestion on the roads. Now, we also learned that public service vehicles are responsible for moving 70% of the traveling public, while the Transport Board moves less than 30%. And while it costs taxpayers over $5 million to run the Transport Board monthly, that entity only brings in $1 million in revenue each month. Now, of course, people on Facebook have been having their say about this new information. Elvin Broom suggests the Transport Board should buy more buses and then, well, people wouldn't have so many cars. Lawrence Griffith supports the use of trains. In fact, he thinks that they're the future. And Randy Bridgman has made some interesting points. First, Randy believes a park and ride system could help alleviate congestion, and so would a ferry operating along the west coast. He also says creating a second major city, preferably in the center of the island, would provide easier access from all points. All interesting thoughts. Now over to Antigua, where tourism has been dealt a blow. Starting tomorrow, Carnival Cruise Line has cancelled all scheduled calls there. The announcement comes just 2 weeks after Prime Minister Gaston Brown accused the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association of exploiting the region. Now, the cruise line has not given a reason for its decision, but the president of the Antigua and Barbuda Cruise Tourism Association, Nathan Dundas, predicts that other big cruise brands like Princess and Holland America may follow suit. And further afield in Japan, well, they've just officially confirmed the oldest living person in the world. Kane Tanaka was born prematurely on the 2nd of January 1903. And just to put it into perspective for you, that was the same year the Wright brothers invented the first powered plane. Take a look at this.
On behalf of Guinness World Records, it gives me great pleasure to confirm Kane Tanaka is the oldest person living, aged 116 years and 66 days, as of 9th March 2019.
The Japanese live longer than anyone else, perhaps because the elderly are greatly respected and stay active into their 80s and beyond.
Well, Kane is just 6 years shy of the record for the oldest person ever, and that was held by a French woman. She died in 1997, and she died at the ripe old age of 122. Now, flying can be fairly stressful an experience for some. Not me, because I love to fly, but passengers on a plane heading to Malaysia recently realized how frustrating it could be when their flight had to return to a Saudi airport. The reason, well, a mother realized that she'd left something pretty important behind. And what was that, you may ask? Well, she realized that she left her baby. A viral video caught part of the exchange between the pilot and air traffic controllers. Now, they were speaking in both Arabic and English. Take a look.
Sir, confirm you are returning back to the gate? Confirm reason, please.
One passenger, she left her baby in the terminal and she refused to continue the flight.
Okay, Roger, left her baby in the terminal.
Okay. Well, thankfully, that story ended happily with the mother and the baby reunited, but it is still unclear how she managed to forget her child in the first place. I don't know. Well, and that's all the time we have for What's Trending this evening. Send your comments to our WhatsApp numbers at 233-7388 or 233-7555. There's also our Facebook and Instagram pages that you can check out. Or you can send your comments to our email at nca@cbc.bb. But please remember to keep your comments clean. So that's it for What's Trending. We'll see you tomorrow. Lisa, what is the biggest thing that you've forgotten somewhere, and where did you forget it?
I forgot.
Back to you.
Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley says there are efforts to disrespect and undermine multilateralism in the world to the detriment of small countries like Barbados. But she thinks that the Commonwealth is well placed to, at the very least, speak out against it. Prime Minister Motley says because of its makeup, the Commonwealth embodies diversity, tolerance and respect, and can be what she described as the counterpoint to what is happening in the world.
Regrettably, it does not have and has not exercised the force that it can. And I can only hope that it will find within its member states and within itself as a collective the power to summon that voice and to forge that action that is critical to protect the small, the vulnerable, and those who would not otherwise be recognized at the global community, those who are invisible and who may be viewed as dispensable and disposable.
Well, Prime Minister Motley was speaking to the media after being presented with a book by trustee of the Barbados branch of the Royal Commonwealth Society, Miles Weeks. He explains that it was the brainchild of the Commonwealth Association for Aging, or Common Age, which organized a storytelling project with the aim of connecting people of all ages across the Commonwealth. Through the project, young people between 15 and 24 were encouraged to spend time with people 80 years and older and record their life stories. 5 Barbadians entered, and their essays were among the 50 chosen to be published in the book, A Commonwealth of Experience. Well, some constituents in St. James's South will benefit from an elderly care program which is envisioned for the area. Parliamentary Representative Sandra Husbands intends to roll out the project to meet what she has described as a concern in her constituency. She made the comments at a recent branch meeting at the West Terrace Primary School.
My vision for my communities, once we are able to get the economic growth occurring, I am looking forward to the elder care programs that we want to be able to develop that help the elderly within their communities, where you can have services that they can look forward to, where they can maintain for as long as possible their independence living in their own homes.